Previously on the Tornado Trackers podcast, we decided early that morning to take 2 cars. We had such low expectations for the day.
I'm driving in my car behind Gabe. I had the worst cell reception.
Pretty soon we got reports that there was storm damage. So I'm out of the car in the rain documenting this damage. The environment around us was becoming more and more conducive for tornadoes.
Yeah, we're gonna be careful though. There's no tornado warning coming. We gotta keep a close eye on the radar.
Not only is it a confirmed tornado heading towards us, it's a confirmed mile-wide tornado. Just as I hop back in my car, my phone turns off. The case was just completely filled with water. That is my sole source of communication, data, and radar. I had nothing.
We can't communicate. We can't see anything. We don't know where we're going. We don't know what's coming.
I just cut the wheel and stepped on it to get out of there. The whole car got pulled into this ditch that was flooding because of the rain. There's Jeff getting the heck out of Dodge.
Jeff!
I'm stuck.
This is the end. I love my family. Yep, there's debris falling. Oh my God. I see the edge of the circulation.
It somehow missed me. A neighbor got me pulled out of the ditch, and I said, Jeff's just down the road. I'm gonna go meet up with him. And as soon as I go around the bend, there is a mile-wide path of EF4 destruction right in front of me. In that moment, I was convinced that Jeff had gotten hit by this tornado. This is the Tornado Trackers podcast. The Tornado Trackers are storm chasers Jeremy Heyman, Jeff Mangum, and me, Gabe Cox.
Hey, I'm Jeremy.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jeff.
Welcome to the Tornado Trackers podcast. We're very excited to have you here. We've got an excellent episode today. This is actually a part 2 of a storm chase that we experienced in 2017. If you haven't heard the first episode yet, just scroll back on your podcast feed and you will see part 1 of our Canton, Texas chase. It's for sure worth a listen. Just a really incredible story, Gabe's side of the chase. So yeah, today we're going to dive in to part 2 of the Canton, Texas tornado outbreak. Jeff and Gabe were both chasing that day. It was April 29th, 2017. We're coming up on the 4-year anniversary of that chase. Pretty wild to think of that as a chasing group. But let's just dive in. You heard the previously on at the top of the ep, and so you kind of know where we're at. So Jeff, we haven't really heard from your perspective. You and Gabe, just to give a tiny bit of context, were in separate vehicles and were headed, or you thought you were both headed to intercept a really powerful, possibly high-end EF3, EF4 tornado. So just kind of loop us in. Where are you at as you and Gabe drive off, and little did you know you were accidentally leaving Gabe behind?
That's exactly how it went. And I came to find this out later on when we saw the video. I was so consumed by this wedge destructive tornado that was looming. I mean, it was coming right toward us, that I certainly did not think that something would happen like it did, that Gabe would be in a ditch behind me. And so I was 100% fixed on this tornado that was approaching us. So I'm driving west on this road and I'm making all my assumptions that Gabe's behind me. I think at one point I did look back after I made a turn or made around a curve, and I noticed he wasn't right behind me, but assumed that he was still behind me somewhere. And, but my focus was 100% on this tornado. I kept driving west and to where I thought I was in a safe spot to turn around and document it. And I don't see Gabe. And this is one of those moments where, when you're in a situation that is intense and it's full of emotion and fear and everything in between, how two people can have completely opposite experiences. We always talk about how things are sometimes either in the eye of the beholder, or it may just be the context of a situation that someone is in. But what Gabe was going through is not what I was going through. And I did not have any idea what was happening to him. In fact, one of the things we've talked about with storm chasing is when you chase in teams, one of the advantages is that you can have two sets of camera gear and two different perspectives. And when you chase together in the same car, you kind of make your adjustments accordingly. But we were in two different cars. And earlier in the chase, one of the thoughts I had was maybe Gabe will get on one side of the storm and I'll get on the other side of the storm, and we'll document tornadoes from two different vantage points, and that will be magnificent. And so when I did not see Gabe, I did not have any thought that something bad had happened to Gabe. Mm-hmm. Not at all. He is the greatest filmmaker that I know. And so for me, and he's also very, very wise in his storm chasing. And so I didn't think that there was anything like a ditch that was changing the course of the day. My assumption was that he stayed near where we were so he could document this tornado from the east while I documented it from the west. I 100% assumed that.
And to be fair, to Jeff, for anyone who's thinking, how could you just leave and not know where he was? There's no reason Jeff should have thought that I was in a ditch, because that was just a dumb mistake that I made.
That was the Ford Fiesta.
Yeah. Practice your 3-point turns, everybody. Like that, it'll save your life someday. Yeah, there was no reason Jeff should have assumed that I had ended up in a ditch.
Yeah, hindsight gives a lot of, we can critic, and we're our biggest critics, you know, and we beat the crap out of ourselves because that's just the way we're wired, unfortunately.
If anyone is listening to this podcast and wondering, what does Gabe think about all this? There are zero hard feelings towards Jeff. 100%, the onus is on me for getting into a ditch. Like, that's my bad. And Jeff was doing the right thing and getting out of Dodge with a wedge bearing down on us.
Mm-hmm. And I appreciate you saying that, because it actually took me some time to understand the gravity of what even happened to you, Gabe. Like, even when you told me the first time, it just didn't register. Because again, when you're in a situation and looking at it from two sides, literally looking at a tornado from two sides, I had the assumption that this tornado was in the middle of farmland. I did not think it was, and maybe that's just being just bad assumption of mine. But when Gabe came up on the scene of all the destruction, that's not at all what was in my mind. I did not know that had occurred. I knew a tornado was on the ground. I knew it was big, but when I was driving, I wasn't paying attention. There were homes all along the way. There were barns along the way. There were mailboxes that showed residences. I didn't pay attention to any of that because I'm just fixated on this tornado approaching. And so I make this U-turn and I start facing east. And like Gabe had mentioned, this tornado was so rain-wrapped, and it was really difficult to see until it got really close. I start inching my way closer toward this antique shop, this house that I came to find out is this antique shop. And it's actually the one building that was just outside of the wind radius of this tornado, and it did not get hit. Everything east of that got torn to shreds. And so I pulled up near this antique shop and I'm filming, and then I can see this wedge tornado and just how violent the motion was. I could see it, but it looked like it was coming more toward me, which isn't normal. This tornado made a northern turn that kept itself from hitting Gabe. But then toward its very end, it made a northwestern kind of loop. It kind of turned northwestern, which means it was coming toward me now. So Gabe had thought it was coming toward him. It avoided him. Now it's chasing me. And so I put my car in reverse, and I can tell this is just getting too close for comfort. And I start going north, and I'm thinking, well, I hope Gabe's getting great footage of this because I've got a bell on this thing because it's coming toward me. at this point, the rain is now starting to hit so hard, and all of the worst nightmares of what could be in that rain are starting to come to life. My last image that I have is I get my camera and I turn it on the video and I just stick it out the window and I look back for a moment and I can see that tornado as clear as day, and it is moving and it is coming toward me. And so I'm going north on this road. At one point, I even come across this pickup truck and I get around him and I start screaming out to him, "There is a wedge tornado behind you, move faster." And it was a father and a son in that truck.
Tornado! Tornado right there! Mile wide tornado, go! Mile wide tornado behind us, go! Go!
Drove to the center point of Canton, this town of Canton. And to be honest, didn't really know what to do at that point. I camped out there and was waiting for this tornado to get closer, but there was just so much rain. And I found myself in a place of indecision. And what's crazy, I'm still not thinking about where Gabe is. My assumption is completely, he's safe, he's fine, he's just documenting things, and he's probably documenting another tornado too, because he's always getting these amazing tornadoes. And so as I go north and I'm kind of camped out a little bit for about 5 minutes, I can see somewhat through the rain curtains what looked like this large funnel kind of moving left to right as I'm looking south. And so I believe that's the end of that EF4 tornado. And so if you're wondering what EF4 means, the National Weather Service confirmed it was a tornado of 180 miles an hour. And so that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with such a significant tornado. So I'm not positive that it has finished its cycle. I'm not even sure where this tornado is. I'm at this point, I'm making assumptions. This is what you do when you don't have radar and you're looking at rain. You start seeing things that are there and aren't there, you know? Again, I've said the word assume, but I did a lot of assuming that day. My assumption was that this tornado was probably still on the ground because it was so big. And it's what we talk about as long track tornadoes. When you come across a tornado that's that big and looks that violent, they don't usually drop down and then go back up. They're usually kind of, for lack of a better term, grinding for quite a long time. And so I was trying to figure out, where do I need to be to document this tornado again? Now, in reality, what had happened is this tornado had dissipated. It had already been on the ground for, I believe, about 30 minutes from what I'm looking at, from where it started and where the first report was. But I have no earthly idea what is going on with this tornado. I'm assuming it's still on the ground. I drive to the east about 4 miles and I decide, okay, I'm going to reconnect with Gabe by driving south on this other road. And if this tornado is anywhere nearby, I'm going to document it. So for me, I'm thinking there's two things that could be happening. I'm going to document a tornado again, and or I'm going to reconnect on that same road where I dropped Gabe off. Like, that's all that's on my mind. I'm eager to see what footage he got. And I'm going to drive south and maybe I'll see this tornado that I thought was still on the ground. In reality, what happened was that EF4 tornado did dissipate. And just as Gabe had seen through his car window, another wall cloud had formed and it had dropped another wedge tornado. And when we say wedge tornado, it means it's as wide as it is tall. It's just a very wide tornado, which is usually kind of hinting toward a strength. It doesn't always mean that, but it typically means it's a violent or strong tornado. So I'm driving down on this 2-lane highway and not really sure what to expect. And then I look off into the distance to my right. I look to my southwest. And you got to remember, there's this tree after tree. East Texas is known for having zero visibility because of the trees. But every now and again, I would come between these tree lines and I saw what looked to be a huge tornado. I'm thinking it's the same one that was chasing us earlier. And so I'm driving south we are on a kind of a walkie-talkie app that I did not realize no one was getting any of my the transmissions because of the unsaid cell phone provider that was not doing very well for me that day. So I'm leaving all of these walkie-talkie messages to Jeremy.
Jeremy, it's massive. It's a massive tornado. We're in two different cars. Dropped him off at his. Oh, I'm back on it. Fine. Scary as crap. But I think he went and watched it from the other side of it. So his phone's not working. So that's why we can't hear from him.
Well, and I'm driving down south, and I make a statement to Jeremy going, Jeremy, it's a wedge. And at this point, I'm not really sure how I want to approach this tornado because I don't have a good visual on it. The wise thing to do would be to pull over, get a better handle on the situation, and see if it's coming to my south, if it's coming at me, if it's coming to the north. I just decided to keep driving because I have no visibility, and I'm hoping I'm going to get to a clearing. The closer I get, I see that this tornado is coming right at me, and I have two options. Either pull over and document it going right in front of me, or drive a little faster and get in front of it and then get south of it and then turn around and document it from the south. I chose the second. I can't promise that was the smartest choice, but I look to my right, and just over the tree line, you can see this huge tornado just spinning. And in front of me, I see these winds. There's something called RFD, this rear flank downdraft, and it's these winds that are sweeping around the southern part of the tornado. And I'm seeing these pine trees just fall in front of me, and I'm having to drive around them, and very disorienting, to say the least. But I do know that the tornado is now behind me, and I keep driving south, and the adrenaline is just pumping because I was just on the other side of some trees to this wedge tornado. I see it go over the road behind me in my rearview mirror, and then I make a U-turn.
Devastation. It is. There are pieces of houses going by me.
And this is where I think the most significant part of the day for me individually took place. When I went south and I made this U-turn, it meant that I was going to come across the damage path. So just as Gabe came across the damage path of that EF4 tornado, this particular tornado was rated an EF3, around 145 to 155 miles an hour. And I start going north, and I can see the tornado moving off to the northeast. And I start driving up to this damage path. And the first thing that I see is some businesses where they had lost their roofs, saw some houses that had lost roofs. There are power poles down everywhere. And so I'm just trying to navigate my car around these down power lines and trying to just navigate the best I can across trees that have come down. And then I come across one street that had these 7 or 8 houses. I remember passing it earlier while they were still standing, but they were all gone.
Oh gosh. Oh no. No.
Just like we alluded to earlier, there was no way that first responders could have gotten there yet. With all the trees that were down, knowing that multiple tornadoes seemed to be popping off at this point within the town, I was assuming that the resources of the town were being maxed out already. I pull up to the street. It didn't even look like a street anymore. It just had insulation, it had roof, it had, you name whatever goes into a house, on the outside of a house and inside of someone's home. And you multiply that times 7 homes, and that is all over the street. And I remember pulling up, and I have this moment of trying to figure out what to do. So part of my story in that previous year, the July before that, my father had passed away. And the way that happened was he He had a massive heart attack at outside in my house, and I performed CPR, and he didn't pull through. And that was a really traumatizing event, obviously, and that was very fresh on me in this particular moment because I'm sitting there in my car, and I remember as my dash cam, I've looked back at this video, I just sit in my car for like 3 or 4 minutes. I was in a little bit of a place of shock because I was afraid I was going to come across people who needed aid, in particular CPR. And the last memory I have of doing that was my worst life moment. And so I had to sit and gather myself and really kind of talk myself up to say, Jeff, you've got to go out and see if people need help. And probably 3 or 4 minutes passed by. And just like we mentioned earlier, 45 seconds, a minute can feel like an eternity. It felt like forever. I finally opened the door and I start walking this path of this little neighborhood. And I couldn't even tell where the houses were supposed to be. There's a field that was to the south of this little neighborhood. And I remember praying, God, please don't let someone be out in that field. I mean, I just had this immediate feeling that that's something that might have happened. I looked at the field the best I could. I didn't see too much damage that way because the tornado had thrown everything to the north. And I start walking in and out of all this debris for the better part of 20 to 30 minutes, calling out, screaming, asking if anyone's there, if anyone can hear me.
Oh my gosh. Oh, please no. Is anybody in here? Oh, I smell gas. Oh gosh. Is anyone here? Oh no, please. Please don't be in here. Anybody hear us? Hello?
All I can hear is that high-pitched whistling sound of propane, which obviously that's a very dangerous situation to be in because if there's even one little spark, that thing's going to go up. And so you could smell it, not just the propane, but just all the lumber in this house there were just nothing but twigs at this point. You saw, I mean, a human brain is not supposed to be internalizing the things that you see after a tornado hits a home. Mm-hmm. You see teddy bears, you see children's toys, you see a busted up piano all over the place. You see, there's parts of a kitchen, you see insulation everywhere. And so how do you process all that when you're walking around? You just don't. So I kept looking and searching and calling out for anyone, and there was no response, which then gave me a concern that there might be fatalities in those houses. Finally, there's a gentleman that came up, and he's a police officer, and he lived at the end of the street, and he lost his roof, but his house was okay. Besides that, his family rode it out under their stairs and they survived. Everything was good, but he came looking for his neighbors. And he found me and I said, "Hey, do you know if anyone was here?" And he says, "No, everyone either got out or are on vacation." And I just remember thinking, what a beautiful set of circumstances that in the midst of something so horrific, nobody was in those homes. I mean, that's a miracle to me. Yeah. And so I think that was the first time I could allow my shoulders to drop a moment and take a breath and not feel like it's up to me to go find somebody or to help somebody. Not too much longer, a fire truck had made its way. And so, here's what's crazy. There's just so much happening now. This is why, we always talk about this day. It's chaos in Canton. I mean, it's complete chaos because Gabe has his own story happening. I'm assuming he's just fine. And now I'm the one that feels like I was almost hit by a tornado. I have no earthly idea what's going on at this point. Certainly started getting an idea that there was some kind of substantial localized outbreak of tornadoes happening in this one small East Texas town. I finally make my way to my car and gather myself a little bit. This gentleman, this police officer, he was so gracious. He was thanking me for getting there and looking and trying to help. He stops traffic and he waves me forward. So I got my own little police escort out of the neighborhood. He was just so kind and said thank you. And I said thank you to him. And I started making my way back north. I remember I ended up in downtown Canton. And that was like the first time I could take a breath, really gather myself enough to go, okay, what's next? Just as Gabe had mentioned earlier in the previous episode, more tornado sirens occur because more tornadoes are happening. And so I start driving around and I'm trying to see if there's another tornado. I come across more damage that this EF3 tornado that I had just witnessed had caused. It was a pea farm and it was completely gone. I mean, it was unbelievable to me how wiped away this farm was. There wasn't even much debris. It was thrown hundreds of yards away. The sun's starting to set. Lightning is going everywhere. Tornado sirens are going off. I'm filming and I'm convinced another tornado is about to hit me. It wasn't probably for another 30 minutes that I have any communication with Jeremy. I had none with Gabe. I think I had a voicemail somehow. Of course, after the whole tornado events go through, miraculously, my cell phone reception comes back. Like, what are the chances of that? And then I have a voicemail from my wife. Here's a little tidbit. My wife was on a vacation with her friends. And so she was literally on a cruise. And she calls me and leaves a voicemail from the cruise going, hey, got a ominous phone call from Gabe's wife and just want to make sure you're okay. And then I'm assuming she went back to her festivities, but I was able to get a hold of her, tell her I'm okay. But I still hadn't seen Gabe yet. And so I finally got a hold of Jeremy, and Jeremy says, here is what has happened. Gabe was stuck in a ditch. He had a completely different experience than you when it comes to that tornado. Here's how his day is gone. He is now at a gas station on I-20 and wants you to go find him. So I did. And I remember getting on I-20 and driving toward Gabe. And here's what's crazy. Even to this point, I don't know the gravity of what Gabe went through. Like, for all I knew, he got into a little ditch, he got out, and then he still documented everything. I had no earthly idea that it was kind of like this end of life moment, you know? And so we reunite at a gas station. There's like 20 gas stations. I went through 19 of them before I finally found them. And I think he was so exhausted and wiped. And I was somewhere in a mixture of adrenaline, and shock and sadness and everything in between. We saw each other, we hugged, and then we decided to make the drive back to Austin, to my house. But that's a 4-hour drive. And so just some perspective here, we had not seen each other until before that first tornado had hit. We see each other, we hug, we get into our cars, and he follows me all the way back to Austin. We get back to my house in Austin. He goes straight to bed. I went straight to bed, and we probably both slept about 15 hours. And it wasn't until the next day that I got any idea of the gravity of what had happened to Gabe that day and really our particular situation.
Yeah, just unreal, the experience you had, Jeff. And I was watching your footage earlier today and hearing, the context, of course, in which you pulled up to that neighborhood and that had been destroyed, and hearing it in your voice is really tough. You calling out for people, and we can never divorce our personal experiences from these events, right? We're human beings, and the three of us are particularly deep feeling dudes, and I was just sitting here thinking, I was like, how did you guys drive home 4 hours? Like, how did you guys do that? That's, Gabe, do you even remember that?
I do. I remember I didn't have my phone, and so I couldn't play music or listen to anything. It was dead quiet the whole way home. And I think my brain was just dead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I was able to even process anything at that point. It was just kind of a zombie, just focused on the road and focused on getting someplace where I could lay down and pass out for about 15 hours. Like Jeff said, we were out hard. But Jeremy, I'd like to hear your perspective on things, because at some point you're starting to put pieces together. And what was that like from your perspective?
Yeah, so I talked about it a little bit in the previous episode. I was at a going away party. Knew y'all were chasing. Always hate to miss chases with y'all. And so y'all are always occupying some level of like RAM in my brain, always in the back when y'all are chasing and I'm not there with y'all. And I also weirdly was not in a good cell service area of Austin. That feels like the theme of this story. And I remember being around a group of people and started kind of like getting messages and phone calls. I don't remember exactly how it played out, but I think, Gabe, your wife reached out to me first. And I was like, okay, that's strange. And she kind of started relaying info to me, and my mind was just completely blown. I'm like at this gathering and trying to find a quiet corner to, I don't know, think and see what was needed of me, how I could help, how I could relay information. And yeah, it was just an evening of kind of receiving a patchwork of communication and trying to kind of relay things on. And it did not feel like a 21st century experience. It felt like something older, where like the communication was much more limited and we needed to kind of relay things around. And there was a big feeling of kind of helplessness. I feel like, especially in terms of like helping Jeff find Gabe at the right gas station, because just a gas station in this area, like that's what we knew. And and that's hard. Like, you want to help in that moment, help your friends reunite, help them feel safe, help them feel that things are going to be okay. And we took a time machine back a little bit into kind of a previous time where that wasn't as easy, and just took a lot of patience. And thankfully, the story didn't end tragically for us.
Do you happen to remember when I got a hold of you?
Man, kind of.
I know it's chaotic for you. That is one of, I mean, obviously that's a pinnacle moment in my story, because up until that point, I had zero information on Jeff. And again, just completely assuming, I was convinced he was dead and that I had left his body in his car in Canton when I drove east to find some way to connect. And so when I pulled you up on my laptop in this gas station parking lot on Skype, and even that experience, there were lightning bolts hitting just outside the parking lot in that moment. It felt like nature was trying to kill me that day. There were tornado warnings following me. There were these lightning bolts striking nearby. But I pulled you up on Skype, and you, I think at that point, knew enough of what was going on. So you said, hey, Jeff's okay. He's going to try to pick you up. And those words, Jeff is okay, hit me so hard at that point. And I remember I almost completely lost it in the parking lot, because it was all of the built up tension from the day was released instantly with those three words, Jeff is okay. But I had to I was using the Storm Chaser's hotspot, so I was hanging out by his car, and I was just kind of like, thank you, I gotta go. I got back in the car, and I was just like, oh, Jesus, I'm ready to get out of here and finish this day and be done with it. And I didn't mention this in the last episode. That day, and especially when I was standing in the damage path looking for Jeff's car, I said, screw this. Like, I am done with storm chasing. I never want to do this again. And because I thought Jeff was dead, and I said, this isn't worth it. And I said it out loud. Obviously, we all know that it didn't hold. It really didn't hold more than a few days, because the next setup popped up, and it was just like this thing that's inside of me that I can't help stirring up again, but going into it with lessons learned.
Yeah. What were some of those lessons, do you think?
Oh, man. Like I mentioned in the last episode, motivation was a huge one for me. Being motivated by the right thing.
And what is being motivated by the wrong thing?
For me, it was, I hate this word, and it's probably because of Canton that I hate this word, hustling. I was hustling. I was trying to make a career out of storm chasing, and that totally drove everything. And I was motivated completely by fear of missing out on something. Fear of missing out on a career, fear of missing out on the tornado, fear of missing out on uploading footage first, fear of, all of my expenses coming to nothing for that trip and having to go home and face my wife, and fear of her being disappointed, and fear of screwing up another thing at that point in my life. It was all fear. And Jeff will tell you 2018 was the redemption year. And we didn't see many tornadoes that year. It was a horrible year for storm chasing. But I finally stepped back into doing this out of a passion for it, and decided not to base any decisions off of fear. And it was such an amazing year for both of us to just return to the passion of storm chasing and doing what we love to do.
Wow.
And we made changes on all sorts of things after Canton. I mean, down to keeping a laminated list of emergency contacts in my wallet. Like, there were just so many little things that we realized that we did wrong and we weren't prepared for. And so we have since compensated for all of those and moved forward with many lessons learned.
Yeah. Do you remember? I remember this moment. It was the following day, and we're sitting in my house, and all I could talk about was I had no cell phone reception. I wish I had a hotspot, a Wi-Fi hotspot we could have linked to. And my wife says, "We do have one." I'm like, "No, we got rid of that a long time ago." She goes, "No, we've been paying monthly on it. It's sitting right here." And I remember I looked right at Gabe, and I could not even, I couldn't even smile. I mean, I couldn't find any of the humor in that moment. It was like, you have got to be kidding.
The full humor in that moment. Here's what I remember about the next day is I slept a really long time. Like, I was out cold from the emotional onslaught that I had experienced. Jeff woke up long before me because he had responsibilities. I was staying at his house. His family was all there. So he was doing dad things. And I think in that time in the morning, between when he woke up and when I woke up, he had started to put some pieces of the story together. And so when I woke up, I had a tray of tacos waiting for me and a tall cup of hot coffee. As soon as I opened the door, he's like, "Oh man, I got you some breakfast. I got you coffee." I was like, "Oh man, thank you."
Like what does it take to make up for abandoning your friend during a mile-wide tornado event?
Tacos and coffee goes a long way. Yeah.
It works.
It's a start. It's a start.
Water under the bridge, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff and Gabe, for recounting this really incredible day in our stories as storm chasers and as friends. And so, that's our story. We're the Tornado Trackers, and this was a defining moment for us as people and as chasers as well. So thank you so much for listening and following along with us. We really, really appreciate it. You can check out any of the footage and videos that we talked about in the show notes, and you can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Tornado Trackers. We're even dipping our toe into TikTok. We're three old men. But if you want to follow us on there, we're trying our best. So, find us on TikTok at Tornado Trackers. I don't even know what a username is on TikTok. Is it at? Is there the at sign? I don't know. Anyways, if you're on TikTok. I opened the app
for the first time the other day. I don't know how to use it.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm Jeremy Heyman, joined by Jeff Mangum and Gabe Cox. We are the Tornado Trackers, and we will catch you in a couple weeks. See ya.